Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with the review of the United States of America. In accordance with Resolution 5/1, the review is based on three elements: the national report, the compilation report as prepared by the OHCHR, and a summary of stakeholders' information also prepared by the OHCHR. I now have the honor to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Keith Harper, Ambassador and PR of the United States of America for Human Rights, to introduce the report. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, fellow ambassadors and other representatives, colleagues, and members of civil society, I am pleased to introduce the United States delegation in our country's second Universal Periodic Review. I present a delegation that includes senior officials from 8 federal agencies and 1 state government. The strong delegation illustrates the importance we place on the UPR process. We believe that every nation benefits from having a mirror held before it. Every nation has challenges and can reach greater heights by participating seriously in the UPR. This process provides us the vital opportunity to self-assess, to listen to others, and to more effectively address the concerns of individuals in our country. We are here today with both pride and humility. We are proud of our country's record and our mechanisms to promote and protect human rights. Among those, the legal system enables individuals to pursue claims when they believe that human rights have been violated or abused. At the same time, as President Obama recently said, America never makes a claim of being perfect. We do make a claim about being open to change. The American story is the story of a nation seeking to become more inclusive, more fair, and more just, while ensuring the protection of core values such as fundamental freedoms of expression, assembly, association, and belief. We very much appreciate your thoughtful participation today. In that spirit, we welcome your honest assessments of our record. We commit without equivocation to carefully consider all constructive recommendations. I particularly want to highlight the participation of civil society in our review and thank all members of the U.S. civil society who came here today. We will report today on a number of areas where we've worked to make progress since our last UPR. I'll begin with one example. In 2010, a number of states made recommendations related to indigenous peoples. One was that the United States endorsed the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. On December 10, 2010, President Obama did indeed announce support for the declaration, as further explained in the accompanying statement of support. There has been a concerted effort to address challenges while adhering to the principles enunciated in the Declaration. The United States has made significant advances working in partnership with tribal governments in areas including health care, community safety and law enforcement, education, economic development, and land rights. In 2010, for example, the President signed into law the Tribal Law and Order Act to, among other things, empower tribal governments to safely and effectively provide public safety in Indian country. Then in 2013, to further address disproportionately high levels of violent crimes committed against indigenous women, he signed into law the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2013. Under this law, tribal courts can assert jurisdiction over non-Native Americans who commit certain violent crimes against indigenous women. This initiative is perfectly in accord with the overarching principles in the DRIP to involve indigenous communities, indeed empower those communities to address their challenges. I will now hand the floor to my co-head of delegation, the acting legal advisor of the U.S. Department of State, Mary McLeod. Thank you.
Distinguished President, representatives of the UN member states, my name is Mary McLeod. I'm the acting legal advisor of the U.S. Department of State. On behalf of the United States, it is my honor and privilege to address you all as part of the second U.S. report in conjunction with the UPR. Since our last UPR in 2010, we have carefully considered the recommendations we accepted from our fellow states and have taken many steps to implement them. The desire to form a more perfect union is woven into our nation's founding documents, and this same desire inspires our efforts to confront the challenges of today. Indeed, the strength of our democratic system is that it allows for constant scrutiny, advocacy, and debate, which fuels progress and reform. The progress that democracy, free expression, and civil society can achieve in the United States is illustrated by the battle against all forms of discrimination. One form of discrimination we have worked to address, especially since our last UPR, concerns the human rights of LGBT individuals. These issues have been the subject of wide-ranging discussion in our country, as in many others. Peaceful demonstrations were held, public campaigns were launched, thoughtful articles were written, and the powerful words of civil society advocates echoed throughout our nation. These voices were heard by our legislators and before our free and independent judiciary. We have not shied away from the issue because it was challenging. We have embraced it. At the core of these efforts is our belief that what is most important is to recognize the common humanity, the common human dignity, and the need for equal treatment of all people. At the federal level, we have prioritized the fight to end violence and discrimination against LGBT persons. We have prosecuted crimes motivated by bias, including those based on sexual orientation or gender identity. We've put an end to the discriminatory don't ask, don't tell policy in the U.S. Armed Forces. We have prohibited discrimination against LGBT persons in federal employment. And just last month, the President announced his support for efforts, including at the state level, to ban the use of conversion therapy for minors, or practices by mental health providers that seek to change an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity. At the state and local level, many important changes have also taken place. In response to citizens' demands, laws have been passed to prohibit employment discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. A combination of advocacy and litigation before an independent judiciary has paved the way for meaningful changes in public opinion and law on the issue of marriage equality, allowing equal access to numerous federal and state benefits. As you will hear today, we have many successes to report, and we're proud of the work we've done since our last UPR. Still, we know we have faced challenges. For example, in December, the declassified summary of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report was publicly released, which detailed the former CIA detention and interrogation program. As President Obama has acknowledged, we crossed the line, we did not live up to our own values, and we take responsibility for that. We have since taken steps to clarify that the legal prohibition on torture applies everywhere and in all circumstances, and to ensure that the United States never resorts to the use of those harsh interrogation techniques again. As you will hear from my colleagues representing 7 federal agencies and the state of Illinois, we continue to work through this and other human rights issues as a nation, and we look forward to hearing your questions, comments, and recommendations today. There is more work to be done. There always is, but we're proud of what we've achieved in our democracy to advance human rights. With that, I'd like to once again thank the working group and all of the UN member states present today, and I'll turn the floor over to my colleague from the Department of Justice, James Cadogan.
Thank you, Mary. Distinguished President, members of the Troika, and representatives of the UN member states. My name is James Cadogan, and I serve as a senior counselor to the Assistant Attorney General in the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. It is an honor to be a member of the U.S. delegation and to share some of the work of the Justice Department to address discrimination and to respond to the issues raised by our first UPR. Since the ratification of our Constitution, the people of the United States have fought to realize the promise of equal opportunity and equal justice enshrined in its text. Last year, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the landmark law that relegated the age of legal segregation to the history books. This summer, we will mark the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, 2 of our most important civil rights laws. But just as we celebrate the great advances we have made, we must rededicate ourselves to ensuring that our civil rights laws live up to their promise. Nowhere is the importance of this work more evident than in the realm of police practices. The tragic deaths of Freddie Gray in Baltimore, Michael Brown in Missouri, Eric Garner in New York, Tamir Rice in Ohio, and Walter Scott in South Carolina have renewed a long-standing and critical national